Astral Chain is not what I thought it would be. Expecting a standard 8 to 12 hour action-adventure game, a Bayonetta-like, designed to keep fans of Platinum Games' patience in check while it gets on with making the threequel for Bayonetta. Instead, what we find ourselves with is, sure, an action-adventure game with absurdly creative combat, a detective game, a title with skill trees, missions, lengthy cutscenes, and a product that ultimately gives you reason to come back after the credits have rolled some 20 hours later. The story is bonkers, of course. Even when it had wrapped up, I wasn't entirely sure what it was actually all about. The long and short of it, though, is that you play as either of a pair of twins who have some connection to the Astral Plane, a bizarrely digital-looking place that's invading their Ark via gates, though it's not entirely clear why until quite far into the story. There are allusions throughout the story that don't entirely pay off. Perhaps some mystery is good though, because I'm not sure anyone could truly explain everything that goes down here. You're a police officer, part of the Neuron, an elite force who can wield legions via their astral chains. Legions exist in some form of symbiosis with its host and allow you to attack the Chimera, the bad version of the legions, who come from the astral plane and kidnap humans and animals while attacking Neuron 2. And I won't spoil things, but the story feels both obtuse and obvious. There are moments that feel as though you're supposed to telegraph them, and while it's mostly a straightforward story complicated by jargon, it's all anime all of the time. The reason Astral Chain is so brilliant though is the combat. Initially, direct control feels quite mashy. It also seems like a strange decision to map attack to the right trigger, but there is simply so much going on at all times that were the direct control to have the intricacies of a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, it would just be too much to take. So here we go then. While you, as an officer of the law, have a gun along with a heavy and light baton to attack with, you can burst your legion onto the scene with a tap of the left trigger. It will attack for you, but you can directly control it via the same trigger. One tap will pull it back to you and a further tap will throw it to your target. Popping the right bumper down will put the legion away, which is important as they aren't invincible and are on a countdown timer that is based on both damage taken and time spent out. The screen will flash crystal silver to indicate you can hit the left trigger again, creating a unison attack, and as you level up your legions, these can be chained. Eventually an enemy will be weakened and you can finish it off with a dual attack, which itself will sometimes slow down and let you hit the left trigger again for a super finish which will refill all your health. And these are just the basics that you do while managing inventory, analysing the enemies, and trying to keep up with what's going on. There are 5 legions in all, each with a skill tree, each with abilities and skills, and as you progress and unlock moves you can switch from the Sword Legion to the Beast, each offering different ways to attack and dominate. The better you do in each file, which is what they call the levels and chapters, the more points you'll have to spend on improving your arsenal. But that's just the combat. There's a whole other game here. Most files start with an investigation period where you'll question locals about what's going on. Eventually you have to take a quiz, which if you get right you get a higher ranking come the end of the level, but there are side quests, blue and red variants, which change up from a simple combat section to finding a stray dog. Astral Chain is littered with things to do, often with your handy detective vision activated by pressing the plus button. You might be having some downtime at the precinct, so maybe you should go and wash your legions clean. For whatever reason, I was never actually clear on that. You could change your outfit, upgrade your baton, take selfies with people, or just talk to any of the people around the place. Even in missions, you can walk your legion through redshift crystals to clean the world up, and in doing so, rewards you. Each legion has a non-combat skill too. Your first legion is the sword one, and it can stop people from redshifting, which is essentially how they turn into Chimera. As you go through the game you get all 5 legions, and while I rarely use the arrow one, the beast, which is the dog that can track scent and dig holes, the axe, the lumbering shield guy, and arm, which can throw objects and open heavy doors, all feel unique and essential. The way they're given to you as well is brilliantly laid out. There's never a second where you're bored in Astral Chain, but it's worth again mentioning how anime it is. This is one of those games where you're saving the world, but you will take time out to feed a cat or find an outrageously expensive drink for a resident of the town you're in. I mentioned that the game is around 20 hours long, but missions can be streamlined easily. If you were to mainline and ignore the blue and red side files, you could probably shave a huge portion of the game anyway, but so engaging is the feel, you likely won't. But it's not without fault. There are puzzle and platform elements that are finicky, to be kind. No puzzle is stupendously difficult, but neither are they simple enough to just dash through. The platforming revolves around another Legion skill that lets you send it out and then pull yourself to it via the chain. This can be awkward because the camera sometimes has a mind of its own. Some battles require this platforming, and with multiple enemies on screen, you occasionally find yourself at the behest of hope rather than knowledge. There are also instant fail stealth sections, I'm afraid. They're few and far between, but they are by far the least fun parts of Astral Chain. Some you can brute force, and the checkpointing is pretty fair, but it feels like an attempt to change the pace of things. It just rather fails there. Luckily everything else is fantastic, and there's even a brilliant soundtrack to get the blood pumping while you destroy Chimera at will. Astral Chain feels like a low-risk game because it's on Nintendo Switch, but it also feels like a huge effort has gone into it. Platinum Games have delivered a brilliant game here, one that's deep and offers accessibility for people who struggle, as well as people who want to master every inch of the combat. Aside the platforming and stealth, there's very little to complain about. It's a testament to how strong a title it is that immediately upon completion, I returned to play through the files on a harder difficulty, trying to get the S+ rank on them. In a crowded marketplace, Astral Chain stands out as a unique, interesting game that you'd be foolish to pass up.